because the temple of the Sphinx is the best evidence that it's older than people think it is. 12,000 years old.
Okay.
They know it was purposely covered. Someone buried it up, emerging around 6,000 years ago, which they used to think. These guys are saying it's probably way earlier than that.
Oh, it's just
probably
a cycle.
20,000 years.
Reboots.
Yeah, and that explains the pyramids. That explains these incredibly complex geometric structures they built in Africa. Who knows how many thousand years ago? How the fuck did they do it? No one knows. No one has any good ideas. All the ideas suck. All of them are like ridiculous, and the structures are insane. Like, who did that? When did they do it? So they think somewhere around 2,500 years BC. But these guys are saying that you can't carbon date stone. This is all guesswork. And it's really possible that it could be way earlier than that.
You don't mean like the Great Pyramid?
Yes.
They know who built the Great Pyramid, don't they?
No, they don't. No, they definitely don't. No, there's archaeologists have attributed it to certain pharaohs, but there's a lot of problems with that. First of all, the Great Pyramids, they said they think they're tombs, right?
Right.
But there's no evidence that they're tombs. They've never found like pharaohs in them or anything.
Yeah, aren't they? They're burial chambers.
No. Those are different areas. That's not the pyramids.
Okay.
Not the pyramids themselves. The pyramids are so massive. There's 2,300,000 stones in the Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid was the tallest building on Earth until like 1860, I think. It was something crazy like that, yeah.
There's stones that were cut from a quarry that was 500 miles away. Like, they have no idea how they did that. No idea how they moved them. No idea how they got them through the mountains. They cut obelisks that were like thousands of tons. They moved them through the mountains and got them hundreds of miles away. They have no idea how they did that. They were probably very sophisticated, but in a different way than us. They probably had technology that we haven't figured out yet, because we went to combustion engines and electricity, and that's how we figured out how to use human creativity and constantly innovating when we created technology that went in this way. But it's really possible that another culture 20,000 years ago or whatever had figured out a way to innovate the way we have with combustion engines and electronics, but in a completely different way. I don't know what they would use. I don't know how they did it. But if you imagine human beings going from the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago to what we enjoy today, that's a tiny blip in time when you're talking about 20,000, 30,000 years. If these people figured out some form of technology that we still haven't figured out yet, it's totally possible that could be the case. And if that's the case, they got hit. They got boom, comets slammed into the Earth. A giant percentage of the population died. The people that survived clawed and scraped for generations, and they lived like barbarians, and they forgot everything. And then they rebuilt or moved into the pyramids,
to
claimed
your
it
point,
as their own.
the Sphinx, which is obviously one of the most amazing structures of the ancient world, the Egyptians don't talk about it. Like, it's just there, and they don't know when it was built or why. And it's just odd that you imagine talking about New York and never mentioning the Statue of Liberty in your literature. Like, it doesn't make sense. So that I know they don't have any kind of good explanation for.
Well, I know. I'm glad you brought that up.
And it was buried for a long time.
The Sphinx was not buried for a long time. It was buried up to its neck.
Yeah.
The Sphinx also has an African face, and it's smaller than the shape of the rest of the body. It's like not in proportion, and it's much newer. Like, it doesn't have the erosion. So they think that during the time when the pharaohs ran Egypt, that they might have redone that in the shape of, I forget which pharaoh they're attributed to, but there's some controversy about that. But here's why it's interesting that you brought up the Sphinx, because the temple of the Sphinx is the best evidence that it's older than people think it is. Because the temple of the Sphinx is a guy named Dr. Robert Schoch.
What do you mean the temple of the Sphinx?
The temple that's around the Sphinx. Like, the area where the Sphinx is carved out of. So the stones that they cut out of this area to make this, like, this ground, this like flat wall that has a bunch of different kinds of stone in it, and some of it is more dense and harder, and the other stuff is more porous, and it gets eroded quicker. So there's all this evidence of thousands of years of rainfall on these walls. And there's a guy named Dr. Robert Schoch, who's a geologist from Boston University. And he measured it, and he went there and like looked at it and examined it just from terms of, like, as a geologist, not as a historian, because it fucks with the timeline. Because the last time there was rain in the Nile Valley was like 9,000 years ago. So it had to be thousands of years older than that, because it has erosion from thousands of years of rainfall. Because the Nile Valley used to be That's what it was when they first found
Yeah.
it, right? When they had to, that was like in the olden days. But look how small the face is in compared to the rest of the body. They think it might have actually been a lion originally, and one of the pharaohs decided to have his face.
Okay.
That's why the face is noticeably less eroded than the rest of it. But you see the walls on the outside?
Yeah.
See, that's the temple.
I see what
and
you're saying,
those
okay.
lines, those fissures, according to Dr. Robert Schoch, he says those lines are a clear sign of water erosion. He's like, you don't get that kind of erosion from sand and wind. He goes, the way there's like videos that describe it in cartoon form or in illustration form or images, but those type of fissures are only created with erosion from water, from thousands of years of rainfall. The problem with that is they think that that's 2,500 BC. So what he's saying is, no, it's thousands and thousands of years older than that. And we don't know who did it. We don't know what like you're just looking at structures.
Right.
You're just guessing. I mean, they're educated guesses, but when people come along with opposing information or opposing ideas and theories about how it all went down, the archaeologists that have been teaching their version of ancient history, they're very rigid, and they don't want to accept like new ideas. They call them racist, or they'll call them
Racist?
Yeah. Oh, they call Graham Hancock racist for talking
what?
about this. It doesn't make any sense. It's just they just throw that word at it like as if somehow or another redate. It's first of all, even if it's like 20,000 years ago, it's Africans. But Africans made the pyramids 100%. You know how I know?
How?
They're in Africa.
Well, no, but I mean, if
It's in
you're
Africa.
ascribing advanced civilization to Africans, that's pro-African. That's not anti-African.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, none of it makes any sense. It's so dumb. It's maybe because he's a white man. Who, by the way, is married to a brown woman.
Okay.
Beautiful woman who's amazing. But his wife Santha. So, but the point is like he's just talking about ancient history. None of it has to do with race or anything. He's just talking about human beings.
Of course.
And they'll come up with all sorts of like pseudoscience labels they put on it and misinformation. And they were telling him this forever. And the more time goes on, the more they find evidence that he's correct. It's happening over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where they've moved the dates of complex civilization all the way back to 12,000 years ago now because of Göbekli Tepe. When they first found these fissures in the Temple of the Sphinx, they were like, there's no way, there's no evidence of any culture that existed that was sophisticated that long ago. Where's the culture? Where's the evidence? Well, now they have evidence. So it's like, because of Göbekli Tepe.
What is that?
It's a giant structure in Turkey that's like 12,000 years old.
Okay.
They know it was purposely covered. Someone buried it up. Someone like covered it 12,000 years ago. I guess they know that because the soil samples are uniform.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
In terms of when
So
they
it
do
wasn't just gradual over time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like, this is all the evidence that shows that this was probably covered.